Alright, welcome back to Temple 420. It's been 2 weeks, day 14, year 2. We're doing a 49-day ministry, 7 weeks, about the end times. We pray burning a little hemp at the beginning of each ceremony, each episode, lesson. I'm from Hollywood, we call them episodes. Really not from Hollywood, I'm from Los Angeles. Nuestro pueblo de la Reina de Los Angeles. I think our pueblo of the Queen of Heaven of the Angels, by the river de Los Angeles, by the river of Los Angeles or something. That was the name of Los Angeles Pueblo back in 1792 or 1787 when it was founded, in Mexico. In New Spain, maybe. I don't remember what it was back then. I don't know if the natives had revolted from Spain yet. Anyway, we always pray the same thing. God, may your will be done. May we reach 1 or 2, 3, 4, however many people you deem necessary with your word that we're giving out. And I'm nobody special. I just come from a Jewish background, and after going to Hebrew school from 8 years old to 12, 13 years old for 7.5, 8 years, my parents moved from Northern California to Southern California, where I was born, and their relationship kind of went in different directions. And so we never really went to temple ever again. My only Jewish experience was growing up with Jewish people in Beverly Hills, and my grandmother, who was the daughter of a conservative rabbi. So she kept the holidays and made sure we kept the feast days. Sometimes going to temple, but almost always with some kind of event at her house. She loved to cook, she loved to have people over, and so that was my grandmother. Nice lady. I was holding her hand when she passed away. We were good friends. She smoked pot. She was cool. The first time I smoked pot with her, I was like, I quit smoking marijuana. I'm working real hard. My grandmother had a penthouse in Beverly Hills, and these old ladies used to come over and play cards there. She would charge them and cook for them. My cousin Denise was there. And I'm working for this guy named Joseph for National Properties and Management down in Santa Monica. And I come back. Well, my parents are in Europe with my brother, so I got no free food at home. Even though I didn't live with them, I could still go get a meal at my parents' house. So my dad's always been very good about feeding me. And so I went to my grandmother's house because my grandmother cooked for all these ladies. So there's always plenty of food at my grandmother's house. And so I show up there, I get a meal, and I was in the bedroom watching like Jeopardy with my Uncle Nick. My Uncle Nick leaves. My cousin Denise, who's my generation, but she's playing cards with the old ladies for some reason. She knew how to play this game. She rolls a joint out on the porch. She's like, hey, Greg, I think you want to come here. And I smell it. It's like really good, sticky icky. And she's about to light it up, and my grandmother comes out. And I'm like, I'm not smoking in front of my grandmother. Are you kidding me? So my cousin Denise lights it up. She takes a puff. She hands it to my grandmother. Then my grandmother hands it to me. And I'm like, oh, no, Granny, I'm cool. And she's like, yeah, don't be a pussy. Take a hit. So I'm like, all right, my grandmother's giving me peer pressure. So I start puffing, and we smoked this whole joint. It was fantastic. One of the most exciting times that I felt like an adult. I was one of the grown-ups with my grandmother, my cousin. And we were out on the balcony on the porch where the smoke wasn't blowing in and bothering the ladies. So we finished smoking the joint. We're all walking back in. My grandmother stops at the door, and as I'm about to enter the threshold into the apartment, Like, yeah, what's up, Granny? Oh my God, I just realized I dream about my grandmother's apartment all the time. I forgot about that. So she stops me, she hits me on the chest. And I said, yeah, what up? She's like, hey, don't tell your father. Because my dad, very anti-marijuana. This was back in the day when he said that. You smoke marijuana, it's like sticking a needle in your arm. All right, so Temple 420, here we go. Day 14. Let's go back where we were a couple days ago to the book of John. And John is a New Testament gospel writer. The people always ask me, what is the Bible? And it's broken into different parts. There's the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible written by Moses. Then there's the Nevi'im, or the prophets, and the Kitzuvim, the sayings, which I think are Proverbs and Psalms. And I guess there's also Kings and Chronicles, Sam, but I think that's the prophets. Oh, Judges, the book of Judges. So, but it's all the Old Testament stuff is considered the Tanakh, or it's the Old Testament. It's the really Jewish part of the Bible. And the Christians don't always read the Old Testament, even though the Jewish people wouldn't have become Christians if it wasn't for all these Old Testament prophets. Even Moses said, there'll be one who comes after me, who will be like me, who will help. I guess Moses' whole thing was taking him out of slavery and bringing him into the promised land. But we're still in slavery if you look at it. I mean, that's what Andrew Tate's whole thing is about. He's like, I mean, why they banned him anyways, and maybe Alex Jones too. Alex Jones just doesn't realize that he's hit it on the head. He knows it's the bankers, and he knows there's all these conspiracies, and he reads their white papers. But it's really a spiritual battle to enslave the people, and that's what I keep saying, that this war from the book of Revelation, we've already had excuse me, the white horse that we talked about last year, Dr. Whitecoat, giving everybody the which turned out to be not so good for you, as per Doug Bignall, the guy who just died, and said, listen, if I die, use me as an example. It's killing people because I am healthy as a horse. And it looks like, we don't know for sure, but it looks like he's dead 1 year or less than a year after getting the shot. So it scares the crap out of me, for all my friends who've taken it, for my loved ones and family members, because I've heard rumors that everyone who's taken it will have problems. If not now, then sooner or later. And it looks like it's going after the healthiest people first, the athletes. And you can see them dropping dead on the fields, the soccer fields, and wherever else. So we were talking about the construction of the book. So the book is divided into 2 parts: an Old Testament, the Jewish part, the New Testament, the Christian part. But really, all of it is the complete Jewish Bible. Because when I first started reading the New Testament, I was surprised it was all Jewish. And the most Jewish of the writers is John. There's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Matthew was the tax collector. Mark was the writer for Peter, I guess, because Peter was a fisherman and didn't write himself. Luke was a Greek doctor, so his writings are very much towards the Gentiles. And John was a very Jewish guy. And because he writes the book of Revelation years later, when he's in prison, and I think that is very Jewish also. Well, the first couple of chapters are to the Christians and to the church. But like after chapter 4 of the book of Revelation, it's all about the Jews, or to the Jews. In a Jewish, to the Jews, and it has like a Jewish tone to it. It has it's almost like the Jews are coming back. when the Messiah comes back. So, and it's about his return, his second coming. And the Jewish people haven't acknowledged that he came the first time. And I think that that's what Matthew says, that all these things will happen, but not until they say, blessed is he who came in the name of the Lord, or who comes in the name of the Lord. Does the second coming actually come? So let's look at John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and he was with God in the beginning, and all things came through him, and without him nothing made had being. In him was life, and the life was the light of mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and in the darkness has not suppressed it. There was a man sent from God, whose name was Jonathan. He came to be a testimony, to bear witness concerning the light, so that many through him everyone might put trust in God and be faithful to him. He himself was not that light. No, he came to bear witness concerning the light. Okay, and I think the John he speaks of is John the Baptist. And John the Baptist was very revered in his day. So much so that they had to put him to death, like all the other prophets. And I think the king was tricked into killing him. Like the wife said, I want his head. And he had promised her anything, and so he couldn't back out and look like a douchebag. And people were surprised. They're like, Jesus, how could you let your own cousin John be killed? And I think even John was surprised, because he knew Jesus was the Messiah, but maybe he was expecting the conquering king, kind of like Judas. And I think that's why Judas betrayed Jesus, partially because no one betrays someone unless they feel betrayed. No one is disappointed unless they had an expectation. And so what happened, I think, is that Judas Iscariot had the expectation that Jesus was going to conquer the Roman kingdom, that he was going to call down 12 legions of angels from heaven, God's holy host of armies, Adonai Savot. I'm not sure what the Hebrew word is, but it's like God's host, like the host of hosts, the host of heaven. And really, I think what it is, it's like a role of like general of the angels of heaven. Like when you look at angels in the Bible, a lot of times they're in military situations. Like in the book of Daniel, he starts to pray, and he's like, oh, I heard you when you started praying 21 days ago, but I was held up by the Prince of Persia and had to fight him and the Greeks or whatever. So these angels are in battle all the time and protecting people and nations. They're under their protection because they're doing God's will or they aren't doing God's will. Kind of like Job. Nothing could happen to him unless God allowed his wall of protection to come down. And even then, he was able to restore him tenfold. Okay, so this was the true light which gave light to everyone entering the world. He was in the world came to be through him, yet the world did not know him. He came to his own homeland, yet his own people did not receive him. Okay, so like we said, the Jewish people were set apart to be God's people, but they had to follow the commandments in God's word. And the leadership at the time had become corrupt. And that's really what the New Testament is about. And that's why as like a 420 guy, as a pot guy, that I totally related to the New Testament. I was like, oh my God, these guys are Jews. They're trying to do the right thing, legalize hemp, follow the 10 Commandments. The government's lying about him. They're saying, oh, you're healing on Sunday. You're breaking our commandments. You're breaking the commandments of Moses. But really, he was breaking the commandment, or not the commandments, the takanot, the mandates. The mandates. Everyone knows that word these days. The mandates of the priest. Yeah, you got to tie your right shoe first, and then you tie your left shoe, because if you tie your left shoe first, it's the devil's side, and the right... Whatever, they're putting on stuff that wasn't even in the Bible to begin with. And people always say, oh, Craig, you swear too much, you swear too much. You shouldn't swear, it's in the Bible, it's blasphemy. What they're talking about is you shouldn't lie and say, oh, I swear to God, it's true, when it's a lie. That's blasphemy, okay? That's what they mean by swearing. So, F off if I swear too much for you. Anyway, I try to swear less. Some of my friends say I swear too much too, but it's not the point. The point is the message that this word is true, and that's all I'm really trying to get across. Okay, so he came to his own homeland. But as to many as did receive him, to those who put their trust in his person and power, he gave the right to become children of God, and not because of bloodline, physical impulse, or human intention, but because of God. Okay, sorry, I look so funny with my two glasses. Okay, so the point is, when he came down here, the Jewish people are children of God. They're sons of God. Even though they're sons of man and people, they're sons of God because God chose to be their father, the real father of their nation, like Abraham was a prophetic father. God is the real father of this nation. Why? Because they chose to follow him and follow the commandments. And like a good father who lays down the rules and you don't follow him, he punishes you. And he tells you what the punishment is going to be ahead of time. And he gives you prophets to come and remind you as your children, stop breaking my law. But instead of listening to these prophets, you keep killing them. And then afterwards realizing, oh God, that guy was right. So, and what is a prophet? Prophets aren't necessarily someone who predicts the future. It can happen because you can see the future when you look at what's going on currently. You can say, oh, this is how Alex Jones does it. Oh, if this law gets carried out and this gets carried out and this happens, you're going to see this happen. And you're like, Alex Jones is crazy. He's like making 10 leaps down the road. But then 10 years down the road, we're all looking back and go, oh my God, Alex Jones was right. What the, So that's the kind of thing I think that happens with the prophets too. And they're not necessarily saying, oh, this is going to happen in the future. Sometimes they are. Like, she's going to say, you're going to be taken into captivity. Your nation will be crushed. Stop listening to these false prophets. Don't cut deals, with your enemy. Trust God, not your enemy. But don't rebel against the nation that was stronger than you. I think I'm thinking of Jeremiah specifically as a prophet. He's one of the cooler of the prophets. So, anyway, let's get back to the book of John. The Word became a human being and lived with us. I think in the King James it says the Word became flesh and dwelled among us. And we saw his Shekinah. And the Shekinah is the Shekinah glory, the fire that burned by day that led the Israelites out of Egypt. I think it was also the burning bush that gave Moses the law and the inspiration and the Shekinah glory. It was also what sat on top of the mercy seat. And we talked in the last episode about manna. And in the Holy of Holies, in the Holy Temple, on the Passover, where they would sprinkle the innocent lamb's blood onto the mercy seat where God sat, so that the sins of the nation would be paid for by the blood of the lamb. And that would begin the festival season for the Hebrews, for the Israelites in the temple of God. And it was built after a formula that represented the original tabernacle that Moses had constructed in the wilderness when the people dwelled with God, because God dwelled in the tabernacle. So, what is this Ark of the Covenant that if you read about it, so powerful and can be dangerous to even touch? So it was a box, and on that box was a lid. The lid is called the mercy seat because it was designed like a seat, I believe, with angels' wings, almost like a throne of God, and was made of gold or covered in gold. And inside the box was the tablets, the broken tablets of the Ten Commandments, some manna that the people ate as they were in the wilderness for 40 years, and I believe some of the almonds that grew from the dead staff of Aaron, which was the miracle or the trick the Egyptian magicians couldn't do. And that's why they say, oh, these the devil will be able to perform, or the Antichrist will be able to perform all sorts of signs and wonders and miracles. So you shouldn't be fooled by signs and wonders and miracles. You should know the Word so you know it well, so you can do battle with the Word. Because this war truly is an information war. And God's people perish for lack of knowledge of His Word, not for any other reason. I know they know more about the Kardashians than their own country and constitution here right now, because they've been brainwashed and led astray. But if they would just go back to learning the Word, it would help their whole brains come back together and be of sound mind, and then start working out and being of sound body and eating properly instead of eating crap. Okay, so the Shekinah of the Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. So the real shining light of Him was that He was so full of love and honesty. Like, it wasn't that He was a burning bush of fire in front of people. His burning bush of fire was His love and His honesty for people. Johanan witnessed concerning Him when he cried out, "This is the man I was talking about when I said, 'The one coming after me has a rank ahead of me because he existed before me.'" So like he said, before Abraham was, I am. And that was one of the reasons they wanted to kill him. You're proclaiming to be God. You are the Echer Asher Echer, the I am that I am. Because he was saying, before he was, I am. And they're like, He's the father of the nation. How could you be before Him? So we all received from His fullness, yet grace, yes, grace upon grace. From the Torah was given through Moshe, through Moses, and grace and truth came from Yeshua the Messiah. So the law was given through Moses. Moses gave us the Ten Commandments. He made us children of God. But through grace, just through blessing, through no action of your own, Jesus made you also children of truth and of God. And that's why the Gentiles are able to come in and be part of one of the olive trees. Okay. No one has ever seen God, but the only and unique Son, who is identical with God and is at His Father's side, He has made Him known. And then so it goes on about Jonathan's testimony. He goes, I'm just a voice in the desert crying out, making way of Adonai straight. And so then it talks about how Jesus, after He was baptized by John, started to build His following. And the next day, and I think we read this part, So he builds his following. So now these guys are following him, and he's kind of performing miracles in front of them, and they're going, holy poop, holy number 2. This is the guy. We're following him. And so they put down their jobs, their careers, whatever they're doing, and they start to follow him. And the first thing that happens, according to John's testimony, once these guys are following him, is they go to one of his relatives' weddings. And we know it's a relative wedding because his mom is concerned and can order the servants around and is concerned about the wine running out for the guests. Okay, so let's read this again. We'll go through it quickly. On Tuesday, now this is again the special Jewish day to get married because it's from the book of Genesis, the double blessing day. God said it was good twice. There was a wedding in Canaan in Galilee, and the mother of Yeshua was there, and Yeshua was invited to the wedding along with his buddies. And the wine ran out, and Yeshua's mother said to him, "They have no more wine." And Yeshua replied, "Mother, why should that concern me or you? My time hasn't come yet." His mother said to the servants, "Do whatever he tells you." Now 6 stone water jars were standing there for the Jewish ceremonial washings, each with the capacity of 20 or 30 gallons. So 6 times 20, it'd be 120 gallons, or 6 times 30, 180 gallons. There's no such thing as ceremonial washing anywhere in the scriptures before a wedding, for anything that I know of, because it was always cleanliness on the inside, not the outside, that mattered. There were kosher laws, but not ceremonial washing of the hands. So it says, for the Jewish ceremonial washing. And so that's the kind of shit that Jesus was against, the shit that all the rabbis were pushing on people. Oh, you got to buy this ceremonial jar for the ceremonial washing. Oh, you got to have this ceremonial rag, like you see these guys on TV. Buy this healing cloth right here and you'll never suffer again. $20. These people are, maybe they're teaching the word, but some of that stuff is BS. So it's this extra burden that he pushes on the people. He said, it's just God's grace. Just have faith. That's it. Just have faith in God's love. Let's love each other. Let's build community. Let's follow the commandments. Don't sin anymore. Repent. That's God's message. It's been God's message since the beginning. Even the King David, the prophet Nathaniel, had to tell this story to King David because he didn't want to get his ass killed. And so he tells this story. He's like, oh, King David, this horrible thing has happened in the kingdom. He said, what happened? He goes, well, a rich man has stolen from a poor man. King David became incensed. He said, you're kidding. Yeah, he goes, oh, this man had flocks of sheep, flocks. And his neighbor just had one beautiful, perfect sheep. And he stole his neighbor's sheep. And he killed him for it. And King David was like, bring me this man. I'll have him killed. And Nathaniel said, it's Uriah, your honest servant, the Hittite, who wouldn't sleep with his wife when you brought him back, so you had him killed because you stole his wife, Bathsheba, the mother of Solomon. And he said, and this, well, Solomon wasn't born at the time. He goes, this has brought a curse upon you and the land. And David recognized his own guilt through the parable, through the story, which is interesting because Jesus often uses parables to tell stories. So he recognized his own guilt and he repented. He fasted and he tore his clothes and he wore sackcloth and ash and he really changed his heart and realized he had done wrong and asked God for forgiveness. And God is a forgiving God. And God forgave him because he's King David. No, not just because he's King David, because he truly repented. And even though he'd killed a lot of people, God said he was a man after his own heart. So I think that means that the Messiah loved King David. Anyway, I'm going to try and keep all these under a half hour. I'm sorry, I just ramble. And I'm doing one after another. It's not like I'm wearing the same clothes day after day. I'm trying to catch up on days. I've been tabernacling and trying to save our church. We're under attack.